Yeah, we're live right now.
Yeah.
Pull up. All right, y'all. The real Nordic Black family. We got Ola. Man, I'm gonna butcher the middle name. Is it Barnt?
Yeah,
Bernt?
it's Bernt. It's difficult
Bernt.
to say in English, yes.
Right. right. Man, it's nice to have you, man. I remember
Thank
we
you.
spoke on the telephone,
Yeah.
and yeah, and we had a lot of good conversations going on there. And I was like, man, I gotta have this on my YouTube channel. And I was reminded again about talking to you because I listened to this. There's a He's kind of famous guy. His name is Tariq Nasheed. He puts up documentary films. He's African American out of L.A. A lot of people. He has a series called Hidden History and stuff like that. And so he became popular amongst black people back home in the States. And one broadcast, it was like about a week ago, there was a guy that went on there, uh, proclaimed racist guy, some white guy from America. He claimed he had Norwegian, um, you know, background or whatever origin. I forget what state he's from or whatever, but when everybody was talking about slavery and reparations and things like that, he comes calling in saying that I'm from Norway, so we really didn't have anything that chattel slavery or whatever like that. And I couldn't like get into the chat for some reason to try to go in there and be boisterous about it and respond. But I was so pissed when I was like, you see, this is why you know that I have to bring this dude on here, man. I was like, oh my god, this is so and I was like, I don't know if he's either completely ignorant or completely just being a liar, or probably both.
Well,
I
well,
don't know.
in fact, it's not a big surprise because it's also the typical narrative in Norway that Norwegians have never been involved in the slave trade. So for me, it's no
Right.
surprise. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
Real
because
talk.
yeah, because I live in in the country of the Nobel Peace Prize, so we are not doing anything wrong at all. But I think
Right.
some of the main problem about our slave history is that it was during the period when we were a twin kingdom together with Denmark. You know, we call it the Denmark Norway twin Rome.
Right.
So there's also a myth in Norway, or a history. A lot of people are clinging to that Norway was in a kind of a way a colony under Denmark.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that has been like the official story, that it was Denmark that was participating in the colony story, and the Norwegian was like colonized. But that is also a myth and a lie, because it was not like that. If you were a rich and important man in Norway, you have the same power as if you were a rich and important man in Denmark. And if you were poor in Denmark or in Norway, of course, you had no rights at all. But we were never a colony under Denmark. But in Norway, especially people on the far left side, they are talking about the night of 400 years when we were oppressed by Denmark. The poor people were oppressed, not the rich people, not the people with power. And during this period,
Wow.
the slave trade was going. The triangle trade was going on.
Yeah.
And
Right. Right.
my starting point to go into this history, it was because I knew about a slave ship that was going down outside a local city in my part of Norway. I live in the south of Norway,
Right. Right.
and it went down in 1768. and they found it in 1974, so it's a long time ago. And they found out that this was a very special ship, because at the sea the bottom, the seafloor, they found a lot of ivory, for
There we
instance.
there we
Yeah,
go. Right
yeah,
there, baby. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
and slave change and everything. And then, of course, uh, they knew that this was a slave ship. And and I work with documentaries and dramatized documentaries. And my
Mm,
producer, he had a dream of about making a movie, a documentary about this slave ship for like 25 years, but he need a really mad person to realize it. So then, yeah,
right, right,
then he met this madman, and I said, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it.
right, right.
But at the same time, I said, yeah, but I don't want to just make the documentary about this slave ship. I want to make a documentary about the whole slave industry,
Wow.
and dig
Yep.
into what was our part in this
The rolling.
industry.
Yep.
Yeah, what was our role?
Right, right, right.
And then I started to contact historian, and especially one guy. His name is Per Engevold, and he has really dived into to find if there were any slaves in Norway, and he have to search for a long time because they were not mentioned as slaves, but like uh, unwillingly servants. That was their title.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
So, and of course they have to call them that, because in Norway there were no laws that admitted anyone to have slaves. So
Right, right.
they gave them another title, and there was about 50 persons in Norway during the 1700s that were
I wonder how
literally
they
slaves in
did they
Norway.
also call the Pasha boys? Remember the Pasha that they gave like another name as well for like some of the servants,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kids.
yeah, of course. A lot of them
Pasha.
was yeah, because this was for the rich people, you know.
Yeah.
The most of the black people here in the 1700s was used as show-offs for the rich ones, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. To serve cigars, or just being there in parrot-like clothes, so they can look at this exotic person and know that this man is a rich man.
So
Yeah,
so when did you start thinking about getting the concept of this this documentary?
yeah.
When did the concept first come to you about, you know?
Yeah, it's like seven. Yeah, now it's like 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
Then I really start to work with this, and during my research, I also found out, that Norwegians were involved in every part of the slave trade, everywhere. There were governors, there were sailors, they participated everywhere. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like half or maybe 60% of the sailors on board on the slave ships were Norwegians.
You know,
Yeah,
what I found out by reading this book and things like that,
yeah,
to all that might tune in later or whatever, Slave Ship Friends Board. No, the diver found it off the coast of Arendal, whatever.
yeah,
Now he's dead.
yeah,
Um, but I, from what I heard, if I get it correctly, that not only did Norway was involved in the slavery, um, that this ship was pretty well preserved in a
yeah.
way, in such a way where some of the documents and things that they didn't that I think that I heard that them say that because of this ship, they were able to see how certain transactions or certain slave ships
Yeah,
functioned.
yeah,
Even for the the bigger like England, Netherlands, everybody knows about them. But I heard
yeah.
even because of this ship, they were able to see even more details into how the slave ship kind of process
Yeah, in fact,
went.
really, the ship went down in shallow water. So they they um,
There you go.
they rescued a lot of the stuff from the ship, including the ship log,
There you
the
go.
ship book. So it's very very well preserved. You can follow the whole trip, the whole trade, day by day, almost hour by hour, what they did on the way. It's described in details. And when I made this documentary, I used one of the guys on board because he was from Norway,
Uh-huh.
and he was during this sailing period, because a lot of the sailors died. Of course, a lot of sailors died on this trade too.
Right, right,
because
right, right.
tropical disease and everything. So during this period, he went into being a pilot or the steering man on board of the ship. So he
Right.
is also described, and he was a Norwegian. So in a way, we follow him.
Mm.
But also they were governors leading the slave forts, and of course Denmark, Norway. They were strictly involved in the areas which today is Ghana. You know,
Right,
and
right.
yeah.
In
So
particular, in the
yeah,
through the Virgin Islands, correct? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's
So
crazy is like way back in the day. Didn't mean to cut you. I was just shooting in every now and then a little bit. But back in the day before I moved to Norway, 2012, I was living in Miami, Florida, and I remember I was gonna try to take a trip to the Caribbean. And I remember years ago, and it reminded me after reading this book about the slavery and all that. I was like, no, I was looking at places to stay or whatever, and some of these houses they had the names of Danish or Norwegian
yeah, yeah,
names there to this day, in St. Croix, St. Thomas, and I was like, oh, that's okay. I was like, wow, maybe they just end up, now it starts to make a lot of sense,
yeah.
you
And,
know.
and in a way, just like the oil today, the slave trade was really inflicting the Norwegian society. Of
Hmm.
course, we didn't bring slaves here, but our ships and the Danish Norwegian ships with Norwegian sailors, they brought slaves over to the
Yeah.
Virgin Islands, where
Right.
they produced sugar and spices and all that stuff, and all this was brought back to Norway. So
Hmm.
uh, uh,
There you
we
go.
we have an old expression for supermarkets in Norway. We call it Colonial. and,
Hmm.
and where does that come from? So
Right.
so
Right. Right.
so of course the sugar was blood sugar, and
Yeah.
everybody
Absolutely.
used it. For instance, and also the fishermen sold bad dried fish. The worst dried fish were brought back to the colonies for food to the slaves, for instance.
Hmm.
And our iron factories producing like
Yeah,
cannons for the force and so on.
and the rope
So
works and stuff like that, from what I
yeah,
hear. Yeah,
yeah,
and if somebody was to go back and connect the dots and all on some of these companies and banks out here, I'm sure you can, yeah, find out a whole bunch of other stuff. But no, I'm reading a book, they had people fascinating stories, like some of the people, the pilots they call them, the people that
mm,
are piloting the ships, and
yeah,
some
yeah,
fascinating stories where a pilot kind of got one of the ships to uh you know I guess they got tossed into the rocks or something like that, and they try to, some big story in here that I remember, they try to sue the guy. You can kind of make a little movie about that, to be honest.
yeah. It's a big backstory
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
big sea rehearsal and everything.
yeah.
But yeah, that's also a side story.
Tremoy Church. They used to stop at Tremoy Church and
Yeah,
things like that before they went off to the islands or something like that, through the Skagerak
yeah. And
areas.
also the Tromei church is really good preserved, so it looks exactly like it looked
Wow.
when they were there.
Right,
So
right,
in the documentary, we were dramatizing the scene where they were blessed by the priest before they were going out to take slaves, of
right,
course.
right,
Yeah,
right. No, so anybody that's gonna tune in later, this is the director and co-producer of the film. Uh, the original title was what? Slave Ship Friends, the Slave Ship Fredensborg,
yeah. The
in
original
yeah,
title was
but in
the slave
Norwegian,
ship,
yeah,
the
yeah,
slave ship, the Norwegian involvement in the colony story.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mm.
No, and you said um, I remember you said that there was a guy from, because they specifically kind of targeted the area of Ghana where the fort was,
Yeah.
and what was the name of the village? You remember, or the area in particular in Ghana?
Yeah. Well, the main fort was in Accra. You know.
Yeah, Accra. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Christiansborg was there,
Christiansborg. That's
and
right.
that was the main fort for many years.
That's right, because
Yeah.
another European country took over the fort, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
But before it was the Dutch or the Portuguese, when they
Right.
changed and exchanged forts too. So,
Right, right, right.
but
He,
for quite a long time, it was Danish Norwegian that
right.
fort. Yeah,
You
and
know,
of course, a lot of the supplies of slaves were taken care of by the Akwamu people living in Ghana,
there you
a
go.
local tribe. They were big slave hunters. So there's also a fun side story because these was powerful people. So during this period, one day they occupied the fortress and took over, and that's really funny. So for a while, the Norwegian was thrown out, but then they found out it was so much money to earn by the slave trade, so they gave them the castle back. But as I have heard, the chief of this Akwamu tribe still got the keys to the main port of
Wow.
this yeah, fortress. Yeah,
Wow. And you said that one of the guys casted in your documentary
yeah,
film that
yeah.
you know him personally, and he's from Ghana or the region or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. This is, in fact, it's a bit embarrassing because it's a old friend of mine.
Yeah, you gotta
Uh,
say it a
Yeah,
little. Yeah.
Joseph Kropi Krampa. He's from Ghana, and I have played together with him for many years because I play drums and stuff, and we have played together for like 10, 15 years. And of course, when we do our rehearsal, talk serious about anything. So,
Right. Right.
so in fact, he didn't know that I was making movies, and I. But the worst part is that I made him participate in the movie. He's playing drums in a part in the slave fortress, and after a while he is also like a slave hunter.
Mm.
And then when I went home to him afterwards, he said, yeah, well, this makes sense because I'm one of the Akwamu people.
Wow.
Oh, Joe, are you part of Akwamu? Yes, I am. So that makes sense, and also and then he started to talk so much about the slave history of Ghana, and
Mm.
and and of course, as long as I have known him, he has worked as in a washery, washing clothes from the hospital for like the last 20, 30 years.
Mm. Mm.
But then I realized that he was an educated historian from the University of
Wow.
Accra. So,
Right. Right. Man.
so if I knew before, I should have interviewed him instead, but it was too late. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right. 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 No,
yeah,
this in this anybody that's gonna listen to this or listen to it now that's from America, whatever, it's only in Norwegian, correct? Although it's very very good. They don't have, I guess, the subtitles, yeah, or anything like that for English speakers to get to it. So it's on the Norwegian channel, main channel
yeah,
out here.
uh,
So it's not translated into English, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe also, of course, for me, my mission is, to throw an eye at or a mirror back at my own people in Norway to look at their own history. That
right,
was,
right,
of course, my reason for doing this. Yeah.
right, right. And then some, like I told you on the phone when I spoke to you, that what I liked about it was that it spoke, especially like in the beginning when when they were forming the this company or whatever, the slave holding company, that they had women in the room,
Of
or a woman
course.
in the room,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
from the outset, from the beginning, and so.
Yeah. A woman in Bergen, a rich woman already in the middle of the 1600s. She was, proposing to start a slave company to earn money. And also, I heard that this is
What
the real.
was her family? It must have been wealthy or something like that, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
always about the wealthy
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
And some of the other wealthy peoples from Bergen was also involved in this. So yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
Wow, wow.
Even a very known poet in the Nordic country called Ludvig Holberg, very
Okay.
famous, very famous in
Okay.
our areas. He was really talking about that. For people that are going broke in the Nordic country, they can start a life again in the colonies and get rich.
There
So
you go.
yeah,
And what's your thoughts? Because I think we spoke briefly on it about the notion that um when slavery was happening during that time, everybody's doing it. Or
yeah, well, yeah,
yeah,
that's also the typical narrative,
right.
and every time I hear people say this about any time during the history, I get
Right.
suspicious and really start to dig, because
Hmm.
it's never like that, never.
Right.
And of
Right.
course, in Norway, we also had voices against the slave trade
During that
at,
same
at
period.
the
That's right.
at the
That's right.
same period, at the same time, and that was
You
important for me to
highlighted
show.
that
Yeah,
too a little bit.
yeah, yeah. So there was, for instance, a guy in Bergen that was really eager, and he had his own newspaper, and he wrote a lot about the unmorality in doing the slave trade. But this is also interesting, because I don't know what you have discussed before on your vlog, but anyway,
No,
um,
go ahead, man.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because also, when I made this story about the Norwegian involvement in the slave trade, in the African slave trade, uh, a lot of people was criticizing me, saying, "Well, but Arabs did the slave trade too, and the Vikings." But
You
but
always
for
hear
me,
that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. But for me, the trade with African slaves is so special from all the other kind of slave
Definitely.
trades. Yeah,
Definitely.
because when we as Europeans started the slave trade, we were Christians, and
Mm.
Christians could really not take other people. So the priests, together with rich people, the investment people, find out, what about if we are saying that the black people are not humans? They are something between humans and animals. Then it's not
Right.
bad against God, And
Right.
and in everything I have seen that is written from the 700 about the slaves, they talk about them like animals. And that
Right.
for me is the big difference between the the slave trade with Africans and the other kind of slave trade, because the Vikings, they can take and kidnap a woman from, for instance, Ireland, and have her as a slave, but he can also marry her. She was still a human being.
Or
And it's
even in
yeah,
some other instances, whether it's Arab slave trade sometimes or certain other things, that they end up working themselves up to be, you know,
yeah, and
out
a lot
out
of
of
the,
it. Yeah.
and a lot of them, after a period of time, they could even go home.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
so so yeah, for me, this is really something I'm really saying a lot of times. No, it's not the same. It's not the
Right.
same at all. Yeah,
Right. Right.
this is so much darker. So yeah, yeah,
Right. No, but I know you got a lot of flack. Let me put a split screen. No, I know you got a lot of flack from in a way, I would guess, assume, like you said, like a white person, Norwegian, putting this information, these dark truths out there, where Norwegians have to look at themselves. They don't like that out here, man. They like to hear those constant reminders that they're the best, and the
yeah,
Norway,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
But I use the power
So I
of
wonder how much
fact.
flack you got.
Well, in
Any
fact, I
hate
didn't
mail?
get. No, not really,
Yeah,
because I use the power of facts.
yeah,
I
true,
I
true.
use the power of facts.
Right,
So
right,
so
right.
so during my documentary, they can see that everything I said is not from my own head. It's
There you
from
go.
sources. Yeah. So, and even my movie went out. My documentary came out during the last Black Lives Matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That was it was a
with your,
perfect
yeah,
storm for you.
yeah, in the George Floyd period, and
Yep,
and
yep.
and I was almost not getting any hassle at all, and that
True
surprised
that.
me. But I like that, because for me, when I tell a story, I have told it. I have
Mm,
no need to go into to further discussions. I have said
right,
my part during my
right, right,
documentary. So for
right,
me, it was a victory that I didn't get any trouble from the
right,
far
right,
right
right, right, right,
afterwards.
right.
Yeah,
No, and those are the things I noticed. Yeah, it was a perfect
but on the
storm.
other hand, they were very silent.
Right. True that.
They
True
didn't
that.
say
True.
anything. Yeah,
True.
yeah,
True.
yeah,
True. No, that's what I noticed. Exactly what you said. All those elements. Perfect storm. And because I remember I was talking to kind of negative about certain documentary films earlier, and it would be on Vega or whatever, and it put you to sleep. And then I was looking for something that I can sink my teeth into, I can see myself in my history and ancestry or
Yeah,
something. And
yeah,
it was just a perfect timing when yours came, and it was very factual, to the point, and I was like, wow. They just put this thing on in our code right now. I'm like, are you watching this? I'm literally, when I was watching it when it came out, I was like, I was telling other Europeans that was around me, I was like, yo, are you watching this? I try to tell you, you
yeah.
know.
Thanks.
But
Yeah,
no, and I, like I said, I had no clue it was you that we were following each other on Facebook for a while, so I had no clue it was you until one day I saw the Facebook wall and you posted about it. Is there anything else that you I noticed that you can talk about it? I know you mainly do period pieces.
yeah.
I know you've done plenty. Is there anything that you're working on now, or what's the deal?
Yeah, 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 of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's almost like a given, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right now, I'm working on a documentary about ethnical group that were kind of sea nomads living along the coast of Norway. Uh, but of course, they were, hunted by the Norwegians, assimilated. Their kids were taken from them, and and the men and the women were sterilized by force.
So when you
They
say
had
sea nomads, they were actually no, they weren't like Samis or
Yeah,
other
but
ethnic.
another ethnical group,
Okay, okay,
yeah, with their own language, and
okay,
especially living along the coast where I live in the south of Norway.
okay, okay.
Yeah, but
Wow.
but I but I didn't fit into the narrative when we were starting to create Norway. In fact, after
Right,
1814 when we were independent,
right. True.
and then they had to start to define what it is to be a Norwegian.
Hmm.
And then the definition was a Norwegian is a farmer living inside a narrow valley, you know,
Right. Right.
on his ground. And then, of course, like everywhere in the world, nomad people is the opposite.
Mm.
So they
Mm-hmm.
had to get rid of them. And this is one of the ethnical group they really were getting rid of, you know.
Mm.
There are relatives living after them today, but I would think like 90% don't know because they were adopted by force or their grandparents was adopted by force, so they don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That's gonna be a feature film, or is that gonna be a documentary?
it's a documentary, and I have
Okay.
interviewed some of the people that are their ancestors was boat travelers, and also managed to interview a man in his 80s that lived
Okay.
as a boat traveler up to the 1960s, because
Okay.
this is fresh history.
Right.
Yeah, there was a camp there where the people, these travelers, were forced to live to learn to be good Christian Norwegians. And if they denied,
Hmm.
they took the children from them, you know.
Wow.
And this place was closed in 1989.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and the
Damn.
Norwegians don't know this, They don't know the
Right.
story
Right.
either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So are you done wrapping up with that documentary already, or is it
No,
still?
no, it's going to be finished by 1st of December, really. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
have done
Okay.
a lot of interviews and some
Gotcha.
sections with drama, and I'm going to
Gotcha. Gotcha.
dramatize a bit more because I also want to make some of these scenes alive, to see the ships again. So see the
True.
people
True. True.
again. The
True.
people
True.
are that are not longer there. Yeah.
Mm. Did you now, before the slave ship Fredensborg documentary film,
Yeah.
did you what did have you done, kind of like what you're notable for earlier works?
Well, the first movie I made was a film about Norwegian privateers.
Okay. Now, when you say
You-
privateers, you mean the basically a code word for pirates.
Yeah, in a way,
Yeah, yeah.
but they are pirates with a blessing from the king. You know, they were
Gotcha.
used in the war, but of course,
But what time frame? What time frame was that though? Or these the
well, it
privateers?
was in two time frames, but my time frame was between
Okay.
1807 and 1814 because it was
Okay.
during the Napoleon War.
Yeah.
and Norway was sided with Napoleon. It's a long story. I can take in
Right.
another time,
Right.
but
Right.
that went into that the English warships was patrolling the whole coast of Norway, making
Mm-hmm.
it impossible for people to go over to Denmark to get the grain they needed,
Uh-huh.
for fishermen to go out to fish. And at the same time, we were in the end of the last ice age, the small ice age period. So along the coast here in the south of Norway during the winters, it went down to 45 below zero. So
Wow.
yeah, so the summers were like 1 month. So the food was not there, and people were starving. And of course, a lot of rich people in the central areas of Norway said, "Don't go into the privateering. We have to sit literally silent in the boat because when the war is over, we're going to trade with England again." But
Mm.
then the regular family men's, the husbands from this part of Norway, they say, "Oh, fuck off. We have to go. We just go into piracy so we have something to live on because our
Right.
family are starving." And they did. And
Right.
and thousands of people from the south coast of Norway, they were imprisoned in England because of piracy
Hmm.
during that period. Yeah.
Wow. I never really thought about that part. Did
No. And the
what
funny
the
part is, yeah,
yeah.
sorry, but the funny part is that I made this movie when the piracy in the Aden Bay in Somalia were on the peak. So it
Your
so
time is impeccable, man.
yeah, and of course there's a paper for business people in Norway, and I was on tour because I'm also an actor and musician. So I was on tour in the north of Norway, and the only paper was this business paper. And we Norwegians are not in fact so social, so we need a paper to eat our food and or a
Right.
mobile. Uh,
Right.
and then there was a lot of articles about
The
the
division.
Somalian pirates, and then I saw that the system was exactly the same, and it's
Mm.
exactly the same reason.
True.
Because
True
in the
that.
Aden Bay, the European, the EU fishing boats have fished all the fish in the Aden Bay. So the fishermen
Mm.
had nothing,
True that.
literally
Mm.
nothing. And then they started to be pirates. And then I saw the system were the same, like the pirates in the south of Norway in the 1800s. They have to have a letter from the king, and the Somalians they got a letter from the chief.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
then there were owners of the ship on both parts, and even the way they organize the privateering, the pirates way was the same. With a double crew on the ship, half of the crew taking care of the ship, and the
Right.
rest half taking the other ship. So
Right.
this
Right.
was
Right.
interesting. And then I travel around at schools in Norway for pupils between 16 and 19 years old, and then we showed them these pictures from Somalia, and we said, "What do you think we should do about these pirates?" And a lot of the students say, "Oh, just shoot them, just kill them."
Mm.
And then I
Hmm.
said, "Well, you should be so happy that they didn't think the same 200 years ago, because then you will probably not be here today."
Hmm.
Yeah.
Those must, but the privateers during that period though, they must have been some tough dudes, some tough people, or
Yeah.
did they? Where they find those? You know what I mean? The
No, yeah,
majority of
no,
the,
I don't think they were tough, but they had nothing to lose.
yeah, yeah, in that
Yeah,
sense, right,
yeah.
right. And
And of
obviously,
course,
they were used to
they were
sailing
used
and
to the
stuff.
sea. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
used to the sea and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and they were like a sea gorilla.
Yeah,
They knew every reefs along this coast and used it,
right, right,
to
right,
go out and take ship and escape between the reefs again. Of
right, right.
course, yeah.
What was the title of it? That one
Um,
or
the right to capture, I think, was the title in English.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay. Oh, and
yeah,
it was another one that was on NRCO only type of thing.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Man, you got NRCO exclusive rights on all your stuff, huh?
No, not
No.
for the world viewers, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, like
I
us.
can't
Yeah.
I can't encourage people to get the VPN and go into NRCO and
Yeah, but
check
it's
it
not
out.
on NRK anymore
No,
because this is like 11 years
nah.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah, true, 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 true. No,
yeah,
but
but yeah,
okay. Yeah, No, so that one right there. So that was probably your kind of more notable one. That before the slave ship one was that one
Yeah,
right
and
there. Yeah.
also I made a big one about the Black Death in
Oh
Norway.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Wow,
where
wow, wow, wow.
60% of the people died, you know.
Right,
and
right,
and
right.
and that was really the roots for the Norwegian equality society, because when 60% died,
Hmm.
there was a lot and enough for everybody.
Right, right.
So the few rich people surviving the Black Death, trying to have people to be their servant, they say, no, I don't need to be a servant, I just take the neighbor farm because they have died, you know.
True.
Yeah.
Wow. Real talk. Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes certain people's attitudes or certain things are because of uh, things like that, you know,
Mm.
because things that go on here, like politics and how the social democracy that goes on here in Norway, we can't, it won't happen, won't work in the U.S.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes they think they're special people, but they're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in a certain situation, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I said it's not because of our mentality, but it's because of a bacteria.
Right, right. Necessity. Yeah. But no, yeah. So anything else that you can mention that you can mention that you have in the works? Probably just that one film. I don't think you can be doing jumping from one film to another or whatever while you're working on
Yeah, well,
this one.
I got one movie, but it's finished and it's coming on
Oh,
NRK this year.
okay, okay.
Uh,
That
and
you're
that
able to
was
mention.
what?
That
Yeah,
you're able to mention.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
But it's about it's the day before the war went out in Norway, from a local village nearby here.
And what was
There
that
was a big
called?
uh, k- um, uh, um, I don't know in Norwegian, in English. In
Oh
Norwegian is
no.
yeah, krigsvarsleren. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
And that's
Uh,
mainly about.
the the war warner. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But it's about the day before there was a big explosion in the sea outside this little village,
Right.
and some fishermen went out and they found out there was a lot of dead people in the sea, and a lot of
That's
injured people, and they were German soldiers, you know.
right. Right.
And
Right.
they
Right.
brought them into this little city called Lillesand, and and
Right.
and and then the local policeman there, he realized that Norway is getting invaded by German forces. So
Mm.
he start to warn, you know. He called the military authorities, he called the police authorities, and he called the Department of Justice, but no one listened to him. And he tried for 10 hours to tell the war is coming,
Hmm.
and then the war came, but they didn't listen to him. So the
Mm.
movie is about that, you know, to listen to people that are warning. Yeah,
Right. True that. True that. Cool. 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 No, but you know you we're gonna wrap this up soon. But you mainly do period pieces, and I told you before. But unfortunately, most of the period pieces you do, the historical ones, is in Norway, so there's not much black people around. So
yeah.
you have to, whenever that film that you can shoehorn me in there, another person in
Yeah,
color, you have to let me know, holler at me, man.
yeah, I will. Yeah.
but but yeah, no,
I promise. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, hit me up. You know how you know where I'm at. But anyway, yeah, and then whenever you come to the city, you already know. You know, we have to take a coffee or a beer or something like that. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah. No, I guess I'm gonna let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your sunny day. But no, I'm glad that you came on here because I want to dispel that myth that Norway wasn't was indeed involved in the transatlantic slave trade that
yeah.
they
It
had,
was.
like
Yeah,
all the other major European countries.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So no, I think that's about it. We kind of went through it pretty quick. The people can if well in our code Norwegians, if you haven't seen it yet, go to NRK. It's still on there. And Americans, maybe the VPN, I don't know, then go to NRK TV. But there's a book called A Slave Ship Friends Board, or you can research and read about it. Yeah. And that's about it. I guess we will end this. And I appreciate you coming by, man.
Yeah, thank you for
Until
having me. Yeah.
definitely. And until next time, I'm gonna end the stream right now. Let me see. Boom.